Happy Friday. Oh, the sun is so unbelievably beautiful today. All of the snow has melted here. Yes, if you are American, yes. I just had a lot of snow. Actually, there were several days of just snow. It was cold. But as you can see, it is all melted. It is all back to fall. So, ow, whoops. Okay, yeah. Hi. I apologize for my absence. I've been dealing with some pretty intense things. Actually, it's really interesting. I've been learning a lot, actually, on an intellectual level, while at the same time working on embodiment. And I guess that's a really good way to start today's video, is what is embodiment? So embodiment is more or less a term from, I'm taking straight from my trauma therapy, but is actually extremely important on any path of spiritual awakening. So it's one thing to know something in your mind, and it's another thing to embody it physically. So as a result of some of the extreme trauma that I have survived, I have spent a long time working on this embodiment thing, which is more or less just bringing my soul back into my body. Good morning. Yeah, so when a human, when we encounter trauma, and this doesn't have to be big T trauma. Like there's a concept in trauma therapy where there's big T and little t trauma. And big T trauma is like severe abuse, or even a really extreme car accident, or big military service, stuff like that, things that we normally associate with the word trauma. And then little t trauma is like little things that happen typically like over a long period of time, but like just having a parent that doesn't fully validate you, that's trauma. And over a long period of time, that's extremely damaging to the psyche. That's trauma. Having little car accidents, or I can't even think of any little t traumas right now. Crashing on your bike, also any kind of surgeries, that's trauma too, even though you are consciously agreeing to it, or it's necessary for some physical reason. Like for example, I've had my wisdom teeth removed, different things like that, broken bones. But yeah, surgeries, plastic surgeries, anything where they're cutting open your skin, it's still registered in your body as trauma. So those are traumas. Hi, Kayleigh. Anyway, so when we encounter a trauma, big T, little t, doesn't really matter, any trauma, our soul, our spirit pulls back from the body a little bit. I think that is why we actually consider our higher self, because it's actually our true inner self, but through our life on earth, it pulls back from the body because it's very painful to be here. Even the birth process, just being birthed how we are in hospitals, is traumatic. And then if you have ever had anything happen while you were a baby and you don't remember, trauma. So anyway, it's extremely pervasive. You could even go so far as to say that, like, the socialization process that we go through in school is traumatic, especially if you were bullied, or, you know, actually just being pulled from your mom and from the family unit so early, to be forced to sit still in a chair. It's kind of traumatic. So, where am I going with this? Well, honestly, I didn't take notes. I didn't write down notes. This is all kind of off the cuff, but it's on my mind, so we're going to talk about it. So, once you, like, come to adulthood, honestly, the earlier you start, the better. The earlier you start, the better, but it's never too late to start along the process of embodiment. And essentially, what we need to do, what we're being called to do, is to come back into our bodies and be here. Why is this important? This is extremely important now more than ever, because we cannot be truly conscious beings and make decisions from a conscious place unless we are embodied. So, yeah, I've also heard, I forget where the quote is from, I apologize. Again, I didn't really prepare anything for this morning, afternoon, noon time talk. In about a half hour, it'll be noon here. Anyway, I didn't prepare for this, but I've heard it said that being triggered is merely being disembodied, and that you'll be a lot less triggered when you're embodied. Yes, an example of this really from my personal life is last year around this time, actually all of last year, 2019, up until November, I was working for this company, and they sell swords, and that's awesome. And I was learning to do leather work, and I still do leather work, by the way. It's a very therapeutic process for me. But anyway, so I was learning leather work, and I was working with somebody that was extremely triggering to me. But at the time, the beginning of last year, actually, I was still hardcore in my addiction process. I was still struggling with cocaine and alcohol use, and smoking cannabis all of the time, like chronic wake and bake, like smoke weed every day, right? And those things were serving me for a little while to keep me numb to what was happening in my body, really, and to help ease the pain of the trauma that I went through. The only problem with that is that those things and numbing out really only serves to numb the symptoms of trauma. It doesn't help you treat the cause or become any more embodied. It actually separates you more. So anyway, I was coming into work and working with this individual who was very triggering for me. And really, what was happening on an energetic, on a spiritual level was I was brought into contact with this person so that they could show me different parts of myself that I still needed to work on, and different parts of myself that needed attention, right? He was illuminating for me my shadow. And if you don't know what shadow work is, or if you're not familiar with that term, it's a term coined by Carl Gustav Jung, and I highly, highly, highly recommend looking into shadow work and doing shadow work. this is like an ideal opportunity for anybody to delve into their inner work, especially right now. I mean, we are in Scorpio season after all, right? Dive into the underworld with me, shall you? Shall we? Let's do it. Anyway, so ultimately, I'm really grateful for that experience. I learned a lot while I was there, and I learned a lot about myself while I was there. And just yesterday, I actually sent this individual an apology message because I was so disembodied while I was there, and so completely unable to look at absolutely any of the topics that he was bringing up from any kind of objective viewpoint, that I absolutely couldn't listen. I couldn't listen, and I reacted very strongly, and I just went and smoked more weed and just ignored him. You know, that's what I needed to do at that time. But anyway, I sent him an apology message because there are a lot of viewpoints that I did hold last year that have been completely turned up on their head, and I'm like, whoa, maybe I was wrong. And just being more embodied and more in my body now, after doing a solid year of literally every single week working on somatic processing and working through the physical nature of trauma, I have been able to take a more objective viewpoint and look at things in a little deeper of a fashion, and have realized, hey, I've actually been really wrong about a lot of stuff, which is very hard for me to admit. I don't like being wrong. I like being right, but that's our ego, right? And the huskies are gonna play now. Kita, you got the zoomies. Oh, yes. They're not allowed to play like this inside, so I'm gonna let that continue. Anyway, that was my talk on trauma. Yeah, so I highly recommend. Nala, can you wait, please? I'm trying to film. Classic. Anyway, I highly recommend, if you are really struggling with anxiety and depression, and you're really struggling to stay here right now, and you're checking out, by the way, addiction and addiction comes in many forms and guises. The biggest one that I see nowadays is internet and food. Yeah, internet and food. It doesn't even have to be drugs. It really doesn't have to be drugs. I mean, sugar is a drug. Let's be real here. Sugar is definitely a drug. But I'm not judging, by the way. I'm not judging. I spend a good deal of time on YouTube and the internet myself, so. Anyway, if you're struggling with staying in your body, or you find yourself checking out and just really miserable, and you know, just scrolling through your phone for hours at a time, or sitting and watching Netflix, or just smoking weed all day, or anything like that, or you know, actually sex. If you find yourself on like a dating app or whatever, and it's all you can do is just talk to the opposite, or if you're attracted to the same sex, whatever, if you just find yourself looking outside of yourself for something to comfort you, I highly recommend looking into doing shadow work and looking for somebody to work on embodiment with. There's a lot of resources out there, and when it comes to like meditation, if you have undergone any kind of trauma, it's not a good idea to look for meditation that helps you check out or leave your body what you want is to find meditations that help you stay or come into your body. So body scan meditations, if it has the word embodiment, it's probably a pretty good clue. And just work on that. And another big thing is to work on your basic 3D needs, like good nutrition, exercise. You know, I mean, it seems really basic. It seems extremely basic, but it's because it is. Though that's what you need. You know, like if it's nice out, take a walk around the block. Start small. Start incorporating just little things every day, and start looking at some shadow work stuff. Those are my recommendations. Sit out in the sunlight. Do some artwork. Anything you possibly can to get out of your head and into your body. That's what's needed right now. And lastly, I've said it before, and I mean, if you're watching this, you probably aren't someone that watches a lot of news, but disconnect yourself from the news cycle circus as much as you possibly can. I mean, I'm not saying take a new age pill and totally put your head in the fucking sand. Don't do that. However, if you're really struggling right now, and what's happening in the world is extremely distressing to you, then work first on your well-being. When I first started going to therapy, and my counselor asked me, I remember this, my first session, my counselor asked me, my very first session with my first counselor, she asked me, you know, what was bothering me. And I went off about Nala, out of the garden. I went off about different things happening in the world, the Obama administration. I went off about racism and violence in the world, and all of this different stuff that I have absolutely no control over. And while paying attention to world events and stuff is important, because it is important to stay informed. Oh, I was also extremely distressed about the current state of politics in Canada and the States. While that's important, I can't control anything at all that's going on out here. The only thing I can control is what's going on in here and in my immediate environment. And even then, it's really hard to do anything about your immediate environment if your internal environment is complete chaos and you're completely disembodied. So that is my message for Friday. I haven't even pulled runes yet. I was just so excited. I was so excited to start talking, and the sun is really beautiful today. So anyway, it is just about noon, so I'm going to end this video and start another video for my rune pull. And yeah, I love you guys. Be good to yourselves.